be it youth unemployment, ASU strike, all kinds of restiveness, economic instability, poverty. John Maxwell says everything rises and falls on leadership, and that leadership takes a process. And Nigerians are on the march again, as we began by saying on the program today, looking for another set of leaders at the federal level and at the state level, for the legislature and for the judiciary. What are we to do? What are we to look out for? These are some of the conversations that we'll have with Mr. Atedo Peterside, who is the founder and ANAP Foundation, and also was his founder, president, ANAP Foundation, and founder, Stanbic IBTC Bank PLC. He joins us virtually. Thanks for joining us this morning, sir. Well, John Maxwell said everything rises and falls on leadership. And I know that you believe that as well, but it would seem like, I don't know, is it that we don't have leadership now? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure that we have the audio yet, but we most certainly will get back to that because at the end of the day, everyone has to do what we need to do to ensure that we get the right set of people into office to do the things that they need to do for us to get that kind of Nigeria that we need. I mean, a number of people have referenced, I think it was even in the course of the week, or maybe earlier, that somebody quoted the old national anthem, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. So, do we have that brotherhood standing strong? Even the new national anthem, the current national anthem, also speaks to one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity, and all of those things. So, do we have that unity? If we do, what then is it that makes it difficult for us to get the kind of leaders that we want? Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Well, I began by saying everything John Maxwell said rises and falls on leadership. And it would seem like everything is rising or falling. Which one is it in Nigeria? Does that mean that we don't have leaders if everything is not rising as we want, or everything is not falling as they should?
Yes, I think definitely we have a leadership problem. And I say that because if you look at the results with the economy, very disappointing. I mean, I give you just one statistic. In 2015, there was 68 million Nigerians who were fully employed. By 2020, that figure, official data, has fallen to 31 million people only. So we've lost over 35 million jobs in 5 years. Now talk about leadership. Some of us have been thinking deeply. What is it that needs to happen before Nigeria turns the corner? You cannot separate economics from politics. But there are three things that I thought were preconditions necessary before we can have improvement. One is the Electoral Act. The quality of the Electoral Act makes a big difference regarding what type of candidates you attract. If you have an Electoral Act that enables crooks to succeed, then only crooks will run for office. Then number two was voter apathy. If people refuse to come out, then the handful of people who come out, who are not always the most discerning, will determine the outcome. So it was important to go on a recruitment drive to get young Nigerians to come back and believe in the system. And then the third thing is that since one believes in democracy, and so therefore you have to look to the democratic process to achieve, bring about any change or improvement. A country is as good as its political parties. So if good people stay out of political parties and keep screaming and abusing them and say how bad they are, hey, the change also has to come from inside political parties. So there's an extent to which I'm appealing to good Nigerians to get into the political parties. So you can scream at them from outside, but also get inside the party and scream at them to improve. So you need those three things that bring about good leadership in the country, better political parties, a good electoral process, and of course, voter enthusiasm. And 1 year ago, all those three were scoring very low. Now they're still not very high, but at least they're getting better. Thank you.
Spoke to those employment or unemployment figures, and that's not to even add the population growth figures to the dynamics. You haven't also considered the poverty figures in the dynamics, which a number of people have also spoken to. So while we speak to the recruitment platforms, which are these political parties, what, in your opinion, would you say? Because, excuse me, when we talk about leaders in the country, many people look to the president and the governor. But then I usually look at the engine that they have to drive. What, in your opinion, is wrong with because the leader, for instance, is supposed to be the driver of the vehicle, and he is right there behind the driver's seat at the federal level or at the state level. But then he's not leading himself. He's not leading alone. He has a number of people to work with. So there are those who also wonder, is there anything within the system that makes it difficult for the leaders who make promises before they get into office to do the needful?
So in fact, some people actually get into office without making any promises. So that also shows you how effective the system is. Some get into office without taking part in any debate. Nobody knows what they believe on the economy. They don't know. Nobody knows what their thoughts are on anything serious. And they get into office on the basis of religion or tribe or something else, or they're popular for the wrong reasons. But let me just explain something. Talk about why there's no progress. If you check your records, and nowadays everything is available on YouTube. In 2012, when President Goodluck Jonathan's government decided to remove the fuel subsidy, I came on Channels Television. The beauty of the internet age is that if you go on YouTube now, you will find it. I came on Channels Television to argue the case for deregulation. In 2019, I was the keynote speaker when the Nigerian Economic Summit Group was having its 25th anniversary dinner. They made me the keynote speaker. They said they wanted somebody who was there from the beginning. When I spoke about a number of things, including the petrol subsidy. Some young people in the room told me that they noticed that when I was talking, because they wanted me to compare when the Economic Summit began, and then 25 years later when I was talking as the keynote speaker. And I mentioned that sadly, some of the things we were debating 25 years ago, like the removal of petrol subsidy, are the exact same problems we are facing today. And they were shocked because they thought these things were new because they are very young. That shows you how the country has not made any progress on some key issues. And now we have a situation where we're talking about spending 4 trillion naira on one item, petrol subsidy. Is there a family that spends 98% of their revenue, 90% of their revenue in one item? So when they have leaders who are unable, either they don't understand or they don't have the courage to tell the truth, then you'll be stuck on things like this. But please, let's get one thing straight. I never said anything was easy. I remember when under Babangida's government or the previous military government, definitely, they were talking about fuel price adjustment. Chief Atedo was the secretary in charge of petroleum. You would have thought he was in a debating society with the whole of Nigeria. People say some things are difficult, but what is the quality of the arguments you put before people? Do you understand issues well enough to sell them to the populace? I give one example from Germany. Germans told me that when Angela Merkel was going to convince them on COVID, that she was going to lock down the whole of Germany. I've said it before on TV. And many of them were diametrically opposed. They planned to come out the following day and stage, protests. But the quality of the speech she made to the German people the day before, even those who wanted to come out on protest, when they heard that speech, they were so impressed. Some of them even wept. So leaders are supposed to lead. They're supposed to be able to explain things. They're supposed to be able to convince the populace. If your leader is not convincing, and it's dull, or he has to be dragged out to come and say the most basic things, how can you convince people in difficult times? Nigeria is facing difficult economic challenges. We no longer can afford easy choices. We don't have them. We run out of time. So it's for leaders to be at the forefront, to lead by example, and then convince people with the quality of their arguments. Are people, if anything, are very tolerant, or they have been tolerant? But how well do you lead them is an issue. And that's why we are hoping that in this new dispensation that comes about next year, we hope the Nigerians will choose the right kind of leaders. And I think it's not focused on presidency alone. The next most important election to me is Ekiti governorship. Why am I interested in that? Because we want to begin to set a good trend. We want people in Ekiti to show Nigeria the way, debate serious issues. If Ekiti leads, Nigeria will follow. And Ekiti is a good state to use, by coincidence, because it's a state that is full of, that is politically mature. So let's use the Ekiti elections to put issues on the table that concern people in Ekiti. And let's see what happens in Ekiti. I hope Nigeria will follow.
There are so many other issues to raise with you on this matter, but you've spoken about the need for people to get into politics. There are so many questions. Someone like you, for instance, having sat at boardrooms and having to work with policies and instruments of economic indices and all, you would want to get into a thing that you can make impact or influence one thing or the other. How easy would that be for anyone such as yourself or anyone else you are calling to join these political parties? We'll find out from you when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. We're having a conversation with Mr. Atedo Peterside. Marpa would also like to weigh in.
Indeed, I thank you. So, Mr. Peterside, welcome to the program. We've been speaking for quite a while, and I've been listening intently to you. I know that through the ANAP Foundation, you have gotten a number of influential, or should I say influencers? I hate to use that word, but let me say people who are influential in their spheres to encourage Nigerians to pick up their voters' card. And I know that you've also expressed the desire that things will change a little bit better in the new dispensation. However, we know that this cannot just be done with wishes. You're doing your little bit in your corner through ANAP Foundation. But then there's questions as to what exactly will be the choices. People think that, when a lot of Nigerians are outside the sphere where choices are made in terms of who eventually emerges from the political parties, that we've already been left with the short end of the stick. Very much like many other elections, it will be, the choices that people might have might be very limiting. And maybe that could even discourage the use of a voter card, which they ordinarily might want to use in the first instance. So how do you think that within political parties, that Nigerians can pressure that some form of conversation, the people who have the skills, the prerequisite skills of being called leaders can actually emerge, people who can speak convincingly and encourage and inspire the people? How do you think we can pressure political parties for this sort of leaders to emerge?
I'm one for always telling the truth. It's difficult for a drug addict to suddenly go off drugs overnight, or for a drunkard to suddenly stop drinking alcohol. I don't think you're going to be able to change a defective organization in 4 weeks. So therefore, I believe that PDP, APC, their present structure revolves around godfatherism. Godfathers determine everything. And those godfathers, in an indirect primary, are important, because they are power brokers. And you're right, they can deliver poor choices for you, because a defective system can lead to a bad outcome. But the good news is that if you look at the data, and I'm a data person, in 2011, 54% of Nigerians in an opinion poll, and not Foundation financed, 54% of Nigerians in 2011, before the elections, were endorsing PDP and Goodluck Jonathan. Fast forward to 2022, the latest opinion polls show that 40% of Nigerians do not want APC or PDP. So what you find is that, so it means that APC and PDP, between them, are sharing 60%. So yes, they sound secure, but depending on what happens between now and February or March next year, you may find that they're vulnerable. If they purge themselves of their bad behavior, Nigerians may reward them. If they continue to behave badly, Nigerians may punish them. So I think the challenge is for the other registered political parties to tap into this groundswell of opposition to APC PDP, which is 40% high. So you may soon find that by February next year, over half the Nigerians don't want to see APC or PDP. Because in any case, if you're in charge, you're responsible for all the problems. If you destroy jobs, it's your fault. If inflation is high, it's your fault. So that means that's not done. So
was this a poll that ANAP Foundation conducted? What was this? I just want to find out if this was a poll that ANAP Foundation conducted.
Look, I was actually, we have been conducting polls through NOI polls, who are a leading company for doing opinion polls. I actually contacted them because I felt the same feedback around the country. People say they don't want APC PDP. I called them to commission them to do the poll because we have to pay them. Guess what? They told me that when they're going, they've done the poll and they will send me the results. So they sent me the results. So I changed my request because sometimes they do some things by themselves. They've done it by themselves. So I now told them that, you know what? I'm going to pay you to go on doing this poll in the future so we can see a trend. If 40% don't want APC PDP and in a month's time it falls to 30%, it tells you something. If it increases to 45%, it tells you something. I'm a data person. I've always followed data all my life. So the point I'm saying is that the jury is out there, but 40% is a very high figure.
Now, whether that 40% will participate in the polls is a question, because don't forget that there are many fringe parties. We know that right now, in the last election, a third force tried to come up. A few other options trying to show up this time around. So it doesn't look like there is a concrete, viable, major third alternative. We saw what the APC had to do to be able to wrest power in 2015, and the preparation started way before 2014. So I'm wondering whether you really see a place where the 40%, assuming they all had voters' cards, because that's another conversation entirely, whether they'll be willing to coalesce for one particular candidate, or say we're pouring all our votes to one particular candidate, or a third force even coming out to say this 40% are the votes that we are after. Who knows what might happen to the 60% that the two major parties are sharing, but let us see how we can target and get all of the votes for this 40%. Do you see that happening at all?
Look, I already said it before, the next election is Ekiti. Ekiti will tell you who came first, who came second, who came third. And we have commissioned an opinion poll. I don't just sit down and manufacture data. The results will be out in about a week. 1 week from now, we will publish the results. But I can tell you one thing. There's a reason we're doing the poll at all. We don't do an opinion poll every time. Some people came to me and said, Anambra election, with ANAP Foundation pay for an opinion poll. They want to know what's going to happen. I said, hang on a second. ANAP Foundation does not have money to throw away. I know what's going to happen. And I say, what's going to happen? I say, Soludo will win. It will be a landslide. So why would I waste my money paying anybody to tell me that Soludo and Opga will win an election? That's the reason we're doing the Ekiti election. because we can feel the pulse, and we believe that on the ground in Ekiti and nationally, there's a sea change. And Ekiti will tell us who is truly the third party. And I can make a prediction so that we can compare it with the poll, because for us to do a poll is because you got some feedback from Ekiti. I can make a prediction on which three parties will be the top three in Ekiti. So if those are the top three, then you can ask yourself, where's the third force? I can tell you here and now that when that poll result comes out, I expect to see at the top, in whatever order, APC, SDP, and PDP, in whatever order. So let's wait for the poll result. We'll publish it. I can even come back on your channel TV and show you the result. It will be detailed, demography, showing age groups, what the preferences are. Coming first, second, or third in the Olympic Games is very easy sometimes. So sometimes you need a photo finish to find out who came third or fourth. But in Ekiti, I don't see that. I think it will be clear in Ekiti who the third force is. Indeed, the so-called third force may be the first or second.
Let me ask you this, and it's a very personal question, because I know that you also worked very closely with President Goodluck Jonathan in his tenure. Right now, there's been rumor that he's going to defect to the APC, and that he hasn't denied those rumors. He's been saying that he's consulting. He's been telling people to be patient, that he's still consulting. But there were strong words that he was going to declare for presidency, and the word out on the street was that he was going to be declaring on the platform of the APC. What did you make of the news?
You know, again, I'm a data person. I'm sorry, I cannot change who I am. Goodluck Jonathan, I was on his economic team. I worked with him. I was also here at his economic team. Let me use the data. I said in 2011, Goodluck Jonathan had a 54% approval rating. By 2015, for the election, it had collapsed to below 26%. The recent poll I saw, not done by us, because we don't waste time on things that are not that relevant. The recent poll I saw, his approval rating was below 5%. So look, everybody's free to ignore data and come out and do anything they want to do. In fact, I hope that APCs of this world will make a mistake and bring up people who the approval ratings are very low. You cannot fool all of the people all of the time. He was the best candidate. I voted for him proudly in 2011. That was a different era. That was a totally different era. The skill sets, the gravity of the problems, the courage required, and so it's a totally different job. Time does not stand still. But please let parties ignore data and bring out anybody they like. Everybody should run the party the way they want to run their party. I have no say in APC. I have no say in PDP. I joined SDP just this week. I have a bit of a say, but I'm not even a party officer. I'm in the chapter. The chairman of my state chapter is a lady who is below 35. You know, these are young people that have come in en masse because they don't want APC, they don't want PDP. So I'm following them. My chairman is a young lady that is below 35.
I do not know where you're registered now. Are you registered in Lagos, or are you registered in your home state? Where precisely are you registered? I'm just a little curious.
Yeah. Let me just make it clear. The national chairman of SDP is in Abuja. I believe he's 52. I am resident in Lagos. This is the 21st century. I'm from Rivers State. I'm resident in Lagos. And I joined the SDP in Lagos. So I was talking about the chairman of SDP in Lagos. It's a young lady below 35. And I enjoy working under her leadership.
The reason I ask this is because I'm sure that you're also passionate about what is also happening in your home state, in Rivers State, and I'm sure that you also want, even if something were good, you will always desire better. That's just the nature of things. So I'm wondering whether you would also like to bring your influence to bear on the local politics in your state? That's why I'm asking that question. Not because I do not think that you're cosmopolitan enough not to register in Lagos, where you currently reside, and believe that maybe citizenship should be by residency, not by indigenship. That's not why I'm asking that. It's because of whether or not you would want to also have an influence or bring something to bear in the local politics of Rivers State.
Let me make it very clear. Nowadays, like about the 21st century, of course, even yesterday, there are several young Rivers people sending messages. Some say they are doing this, they are happy, they are not happy. But the point I'm making that let's again tell the truth. I think I have the bigger voice at the national level. Like now, I'm on Channels TV. I've got a number of invitations to come and talk on TV to the national issues. I don't think I'm a great voice on village politics. So I think it's different strokes for different folks. There are people who are much better than me at the village level, at the LGA level. So I think I'm better. I'm an economist by training. I was at the national conference. I'm more at home discussing national issues. So I'm as interested about problems in Borno as I am about Zamfara, as about Rivers, or about Lagos. So unfortunately, they say all politics is local. But I think some people are more appropriate at a national level in terms of their voices. I've never gotten involved in an argument at village level as to what should happen in this village or the other village, unfortunately.
You just preempted my question by saying that all politics, because I was just about to throw that to you, that they say all politics is local, but maybe you have chosen that your locality will be Lagos, and of course, that is fine. I'm just wondering, what more can we bring to bear? Because we've spoken about the problems of leadership enough. What concrete steps? We've seen a few. Obi Ezekwesili has started a school, Fix Politics, it's called. There is something in that regard to maybe mentor people and teach them what leadership is about, especially at the level of government. Do you think we need some more schools like that to teach people? Because it would seem that somehow, when you really think about it, it would seem that the only people who have any real formal training in terms of leadership are those within the ranks of the military. Maybe other, security institutions. What do you think we need to be doing deliberately to, bring to bear that culture of leadership?
I think there are many things you can do to improve a nation. And I'm the first one to come out and say, okay, secretary, various people contribute, train people, educate people. But at the end of the day, I began this program, I joined this interview by saying I thought there were three necessary things that had to be done before we could talk about improvement in Nigeria. And one of them I said was, you also have to join political parties. So it's good for Obi to train people, but she's training them, hoping, I believe, that some of them will then join political parties to come and impart that knowledge that they have acquired. It's no use being trained when you go and stay at home. And I think for too long, many of us have left the economy to politicians. We have tried to kid ourselves that you could talk to politicians and they will do the correct thing. And now we have realized that we've run out of time. So you have to mix the two. Because I think, that's why I wrote an article yesterday encouraging every adult Nigerian should go and join the political party. These people tell me things like, oh, it cannot be this, everybody cannot join. Hang on a second. In the US, even Supreme Court judges are chosen on the basis largely of their political leanings, among other things. So which means that even Supreme Court judges have political leanings. We have to make some things fashionable and make some things unfashionable. It should be fashionable in Nigeria for me to say proudly, I belong to the SDP. And please let me make it very clear. I've not said SDP is the perfect party. Perhaps I'm saying they're the least bad option. Because I have to choose from 18 parties anyway. And I cannot choose two who don't believe in democracy. So I have to look at the remaining 16. Of the remaining 16, they look like the best to me. So in any case, if you want to improve something, you must get in there and help them to improve. So I want to work under my chairman, who I said is a 35-year-old lady in Lagos. And people like that, perhaps they're the future.
Yeah. So let's speak to that future, Mr. Peterside, as we round this off. young people are generally, I mean, you, Malpe, inferred, and I think you also spoke to the dwindling number of voters who come out during the elections. A good number of people who vote are young people, and we all know how apathetic many people are to politics, to voting, and all those things. Getting their buy-in, building their trust in the process, in the electoral process altogether, is a lot of work. And there are those who would argue that we have started. What else needs to be done to speedily and confidently rebuild the trust of people in the political process?
Look, everything that can be done in terms of the law has been done. You won't get another law change. That's a waste of time. The current law is good enough if you want to implement it well. But I think the critical thing that will make people interested in this next elections series, beginning from a Ekiti governorship, is anger. Nigerians are angry. I've said it repeatedly. That the reason they're going to come out and vote this time is because they are angry. And people like Go Nigeria and other institutions are trying to tell them, if you're angry, get a PVC, go and vote against those whom you think have messed you up. Don't allow them to have an easy time. People are angry for a variety of reasons. I've said it repeatedly. Security, people have lost loved ones. People are angry because they've lost their jobs. People are angry because universities are closed or there's no educational system. People are angry because of the healthcare system that is non-existent in parts of the country. People are angry for so many reasons. But what Go Nigeria is trying to do is to tell people that, look, channel that anger through the electoral process. And I'll tell people as well from Ekiti, are you angry and are you in Ekiti? If you're angry and you're in Ekiti, turn out next month and vote in the governorship elections. Channel your anger at the ballot box and let's see what happens.
Well, we have to thank you very much for this conversation. And, well, you have promised to come back when you have more empirical data. We'll be waiting for that. Atedo Peterside is President, ANAP Foundation, and founder, Stanbic IBTC Bank. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Okay.